It's so easy to stop writing. After writing 1,000 words for 14 days, I felt confident that, even without a word count, I could keep going. I was wrong. I ignored the flags, how I was inconsistent with when I wrote, how I kept nodding off as I wrote. Once I no longer had something to write to, a challenge to reach, I just petered off. And I realized, if I was serious about writing a web novel, then I needed to be serious about actually writing. To do that, I needed to be more consistent about scheduling my time, and a big obstacle for that was my sleep. Back in March 2024, I experienced nasal drip for the first time, and I did not handle it well. Between my fear of suffocating in my sleep and the discomfort of nasal congestion and mucus caked in my throat, I started staying up until I passed out. And before anyone thinks I'm overreacting, I talked to my primary care doctor about my concerns, and she said yes, I could suffocate in my sleep, which did not make me feel better. So I ran away, gave in to my compulsion to read web novels obsessively on my phone, and slowly I started staying up later and later until finally, one weekend, I ended up not going to sleep until after 9 a.m. No big deal. It's the weekend. Not like I was working. Until it did happen on a work day. Then it happened again. At that point, I no longer was experiencing nasal drip, and yet I was still indulging, spiraling. So I decided, I'm going to use atomic habits to create two habits, writing and sleeping, because I want to write and I need to sleep. Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones, by James Clear, is a book about how making tiny changes can create lasting positive or negative outcomes. According to Clear, instead of focusing on goals, aka results, we should build a system, aka the process that leads to results. Before creating my writing and sleep habits, I went over the 3 parts of behavior change. These are the outcomes, goals, the processes, what steps you take to reach your goals, and your identity, how you view yourself. According to Clear, people focus too much on the first 2 parts and too little on their identity, which is why some habits fail. In order to build lasting habits, you need to build identity-based habits. It's about becoming the type of person who would hit that goal. This can be achieved in 2 steps. 1. Decide the type of person you want to be. 2. Prove it to yourself with small wins. According to Clear, your identity emerges out of your habits. So your habits are how you embody your identity. The more you repeat a behavior, the more you reinforce the identity associated with the behavior. Now, the process of building a habit can be divided into 4 steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. The cue triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which provides a reward, which satisfies the craving, and ultimately becomes associated with the cue. These 4 steps form a neurological feedback loop that allows you to create atomic habits. This is known as the habit loop. Clear uses this in the framework called the 4 laws of behavior change. Basically, to create a good habit, you need to make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. To break a bad habit, you need to inverse it. You make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. Let me be honest with you. I read Atomic Habits on and off, mostly off, from April 30th, 2023 to October 2024, and I've read a lot of books in the meanwhile, so my understanding of it is vague. I should have just reread, but I was in such a rush to form these habits, I just didn't. I do my best, but there are perhaps more concise videos with a better grasp on the concept, so thank you for watching mine instead. But yeah, back to me doing my best and creating new habits. Clear is big on creating identity-based habits, so I asked myself, what type of person did I want to be? I want to be a writer. I want to be someone who doesn't prioritize reading web novels over sleeping. I want to be someone who goes to bed at the same time every night and doesn't use my lack of energy as an excuse to not do something, including the things I say I want to do. Now, Clear actually uses the identity as a writer as an example, so let's look at what he said. Who is the type of person who could write a book? It's probably someone who is consistent and reliable, Now your focus shifts from writing a book, outcome-based, to being the type of person who is consistent and reliable, identity-based. I think being the type of person who is consistent and reliable is also the type of person who gets 7 hours of sleep every day. So let's build on this. To assist with creating a sleep habit, I found on my bookshelf Habit Nest, the Sleep and Evening Routine Sidekick Journal, and Say Goodnight to Insomnia by Greg Jacobs. More on Jacobs later. I found Habit Nest's journal extremely helpful. It references atomic habits and includes sections for the why and the who, as well as a quick summary about the 3 factors of behavior change and figuring out your identity on your off days. The journal covers 66 days, and while I didn't find the daily entries always helpful, I did enjoy reading them and they helped keep me consistent. Habit Nest recommends writing down your reason for creating a new habit, so if you ever find yourself struggling, you can go back and remind yourself why you're doing it. I like this idea so much I also wrote a list on why I write, but I found that even when I was struggling, I never referred back to these. Now that I have my identity down, it's time to apply the 4 laws of behavior change and create a sleep and writing habit. To make it obvious, I use habit stacking and implementation intentions. To make it attractive, I use temptation bundling. To make it easy, I changed my environment. For my sleep habit, I decided to get rid of what was causing me anxiety when lying in bed, my floating bookshelf above my headboard. I knew it wouldn't happen, but for years I've been anxious that one day these bookshelves would fall and squash my head. Combine that with my new I'm gonna suffocate anxiety, I ended up sleeping with my feet facing the headboard just in case, which led to me feeling almost encaged when lying down. I am so grateful to Atomic Habits for giving me the motivation and justification to finally get rid of these bookshelves. I felt so free and reclaimed my bed. For my writing habit, I started leaving my moleskin journal that I write Harriet in on my desk so I can see it. Just seeing it reminds me to write. Eventually, I began leaving my Habit Nest journal next to it. Now, I want to take a moment to go over the 2-minute rule. Clear mentions using it if you find yourself struggling to start a habit. This involves downscaling a habit until it takes less than 2 minutes to do, all to make starting as easy as possible. For example, instead of writing a book, write 1 sentence. Instead of running a marathon, just put on your running shoes. It's about mastering the habit of showing up. Clear recommends using this with habit shaping to scale your habits back up towards your ultimate goal. Once you master that, move on to the next stage. Write 1 paragraph, then write 1,000 words, 5,000 words, till finally you write a book. I did not do this. In fact, I felt such a strong instinctual resistance to this, and I don't fully understand why. It's funny, I used to enroll in the gym, and I just found myself not going, and my brother tried to use this rule on me, saying, just show up. That's all you have to do. And instead of doing that, I ended up just canceling my membership, and it was like, why is this so hard for me? Like, why is the thought of just showing up not enough? And I think Stephen Guise touches on this in his book, Mini Habits for Weight Loss. In it, he goes into how doing 1 push-up a day led to exercise becoming a part of his life, his original resistance and disgust a thing of the past. And he mentions how you may struggle with mini habits because, well, there's a quote, I'm just going to read it. Your objections are probably about it not being good enough, that it's inconvenient with no payoff, that you'd do it if you were in a different situation, and probably a vague feeling that you'd be better off not doing it. This is because you haven't practiced doing such small behaviors and seen the payoff. When something is foreign to you, your subconscious will throw up these smokescreen excuses. And yes, personally, it does feel too slow and like I'll just stop doing it in a few days or weeks. If I listened to my brother and went to the gym, I understand the hope is eventually I'll go inside, but just going to go feels like such a waste of time. Which is wild because just be mindlessly reading while sitting instead? How isn't that a waste of time? When it comes to writing, I understand you want to be consistent, but I worry that just showing up can lead to me just going through the motions, not actually making progress. I don't know. What do you think about the 2-minute rule? Have you tried it? Found yourself not wanting to do it? Or has it helped? And moving on. For the final law, make it satisfying, I found using the Habit Nest sleep and evening routine journal helpful as a habit tracker. I have these to-do cards I got that have also been helpful with this, and I bought this pack of punch cards when I first started reading Atomic Habits. I ended up using them to track when I did the 1,000 words challenge. Ultimately, I didn't really care for the punch cards, but it was nice seeing them finished. It felt like I was proving to myself I can do this, and I have done it. Between this, the to-do cards, and the daily sleep entries, I could feel like I was progressing, but also leaving something behind. Now to use the inversions of the 4 laws to break a habit. I believe my biggest issue when it comes to writing consistently and sleeping is my obsessive reading of web novels. This isn't something that just appeared. I've always had this proclivity within me. Years ago, I literally had to stop using my Kindle because I would just keep reading, going to the next ebook and the next, not stopping. So I stopped using it. I managed to control my urges while using my iPhone thanks to the app Focus Lock. It really helped me not get as carried away while obsessively reading web novels. Unfortunately, I stopped using it when the whole "I'm going to suffocate if I sleep" thing happened, and my phone became an escape from that feeling. Focus Lock doesn't work if you don't use it. Plus, there's a bug. They revamped the app and added a feature where you can schedule when and for how long to block apps. Thing is, before 12 a.m., you can still click on Focus Lock, hit edit, and unselect the day and just use your apps. So that's what I kept doing until finally I just turned off scheduling and stopped using Focus Lock entirely. But now I'm creating new habits, which means I need to stop giving into this behavior. To make it invisible and difficult, I started using Focus Lock to lock apps on my phone again before watching TV with my dad. I eventually caved and bought the Box Palma 2 to read web novels on. I love it. E-ink is amazing. I practically ignore my iPhone at home now. Unfortunately, Focus Lock isn't in the Google Play Store, and I didn't want to pay for another subscription, so I bought this lockbox and I've been placing my Palma 2 in it before going to watch TV, making it invisible and difficult to access. To make it unattractive, I asked myself, why is this my priority? And reminded myself how it's harming me, not just in stopping me from accomplishing what I want to get done, but also making my health worse. It keeps me up way past when I should turn in for bed, getting as bad as causing me to stay up until 9 a.m., and I can't go to work on no sleep, which causes me to call out, which causes me to use a lot of leave, and if I'm not careful, I could run out, and then I wouldn't get paid. And what if this causes me to lose my current job? Doesn't feel very attractive now. To make obsessively reading web novels unsatisfying, I made sure not to read using my Palma 2 after 7 p.m., freeing myself up to focus on writing without depriving myself of what I love doing, reading. By stopping myself from constantly reading, by forcing a break, avoiding binging, it makes the experience slightly unsatisfying and much easier not to spiral. So did it work? No, at least not for creating a writing habit. I didn't factor in YouTube and my tendency to go off on tangents. First, YouTube. I did not factor in time working on this channel. As I got more consistent sleep, I became more motivated to work on this YouTube channel, to the point I began prioritizing working on it over writing. I had been concerned when I tied my YouTube channel to my writing that it could become an obstacle instead of a support, and that's exactly what happened. Made worse by the fact I'd become stuck in my story, as mentioned in my writing update video. I also did not understand how long video editing would take. Hours. It takes hours. Next, I became really focused on improving my sleep. I read Say Goodnight to Insomnia. Highly recommend. My biggest takeaways were, don't try to recover lost sleep. That actually contributes to insomnia in the long run. Always wake up at the same time or within an hour of said time every day, no matter how poorly you sleep, and that in most cases, insomnia is caused by thoughts and behaviors. It was incredibly helpful for my sleep, but not for consistently writing. Due to my nasal drip coming back, more on that later, and finally acknowledging that trying to treat it, a symptom, but not treat the cause, was dumb. It's just a symptom of my acid reflux, which was exacerbated by my then recent weight gain. So I decided to learn more about acid reflux and commit to taking it seriously. I ended up buying and reading The Acid Watcher Diet by Jonathan Aviv. I read it over a weekend and learned that acid reflux isn't just about the acid in your body that goes up the esophagus, but also the dietary acid in certain foods and beverages you digest, like tomatoes. Also, certain foods like chocolate can relax the lower esophageal sphincter, which allows stomach acid to flow up the esophagus, which could trigger heartburn. When it comes to exercise, avoid anything too strenuous that can trigger reflux, such as movements that strain the abdominal wall, like core exercises, inversions, and putting your head lower than your waist. Long story short, there's a lot of good information, and his constant mentions of cancer motivated me to find a new gastroenterologist and get a new upper endoscopy done after 4 years. I'm fine. Just have some polyps due to years of taking omeprazole and, of course, gastritis. But no Barrett's esophagus or cancer. I just need to lose weight. Once that tangent was done, I found myself prioritizing watching YouTube videos over writing and even working on this channel. It's like once I started using my laptop again, I just lost all control and replaced obsessively reading with obsessively watching videos. And I let this drag on. Instead of nipping it in the bud, I tried justifying it, then shifted to bargaining. I was all, just need to finish watching these last few videos, then I'll stop forever. All or nothing behavior that did not help the situation. Finally, I installed the Google Chrome extension for Stay Focused to block out YouTube, making it invisible and difficult to access. It's just, there's always something, and it's frustrating to think I need help and can't just stop on my own. Basically, I wrote, then I stopped and got distracted. I also found myself questioning if identifying as a writer backfired. I've always identified as a writer, more for coming up with story ideas than actually writing. I'm not sure what to do in this case. It's so ingrained in me to view writers as someone who, even if they don't write, as long as they come up with story ideas, they still are, I still am a writer. And that's ingrained in me. And so I don't know if I need to change the identity I have or work on fixing this impression I've had for years. I mean, maybe I could try an author identity. After all, I do view them as writers who write. I don't know. Something to think about. Did creating a sleep habit work? Yes. Yes, it did. Using the sleep and evening sidekick journal, I created my evening routine. I want to note that when it comes to reading at night, I only read physical books. For whatever reason, I'm able to stop in a way I struggle to when reading ebooks or web novels. I haven't always been consistent. I've experimented with different bedtimes and sleep targets, but so far going to bed at 12:35 a.m. will usually get me 6 to 6.5 hours of sleep, way better than what I was doing before. I've noticed instead of completely spiraling on off days, I've started just shifting my lights out time from 12:35 a.m. to 1:35 a.m. and that's actually helped. I get less sleep, but I don't spiral, and technically I'm still doing the habit, so there's no negative emotional response. So I'm pretty happy. Well, I was. 4 days into my first week of following this routine, my nasal drip came back with a vengeance. It had gone away for a few weeks before, but now it was back. I managed to continue following the routine, thankfully, but I started taking Mucinex again, and eventually what I call the Mucinex incident happened. When I first got nasal drip, I used Mucinex. I couldn't stand trying to sleep with my nose clogged, and despite using Neomed saline nasal sprays, Sinus Cleanse vapor inhalers, and occasionally Sinapulse Elite Advanced Nasal Irrigation System, the only thing that cleared up my nose was Mucinex. So I used it nightly, and after weeks of this, I gradually stopped when my nasal drip went away. Then it came back, so I started using Mucinex again. Weeks passed. I reached the weight around when I first got nasal drip, but it didn't get better. It got worse. My nose felt so clogged it hurt. I experienced sinus headaches frequently. I began sneezing all the time. My nose felt a stinging sensation. Nasal discharge kept happening. Each time I talked to my brothers about this, they would warn me not to keep using Mucinex. But I already overused it before and it was fine, so I ignored them. Finally, they mentioned it again, and I was like, alright, let's look it up. I read the warning label, saw it could cause nasal congestion to reoccur or worsen, then Googled and learned about rebound congestion, which sounded a lot like what I was experiencing. So I decided to quit Mucinex cold turkey. I waited for the weekend, stopped using it, and fell back into staying up late reading on my Palma 2. Anything to avoid trying to sleep with a clogged nose and anxiety that, between it and the mucus caked on my throat, I would suffocate in my sleep. Can you tell how terrified of suffocating to death I am? That is not how I want to die. According to Google, it should take a week or so for rebound congestion to clear up. After a week, I still had nasal congestion, but it was much better. I continued going to sleep late, but I was still doing my evening routine. Just instead of reading a physical book, I was reading web novels on my Palma 2. After 2 weeks, I figured I should get back on track. So I went to bed around 12:35 and felt pretty good. The next day, I decided not to use my focus lock and watched the video The Manhwa That Went From Mid to Peak. Found it sounded interesting, so I decided to check out the first few chapters. It would have been fine if that's all I ended up doing. Instead, I became completely absorbed. Next thing I know, it's 6 a.m. and I've been reading this webcomic all night, and I had work in an hour, so I relapsed again. Remember how I said Jacob's book taught me not to try making up sleep and to wake up at the same time every day? Well, I stopped doing that. I started sleeping in again, and it felt amazing. I was coming home and nodding off. Physically, my body was exhausted. I could feel this weariness, and I just didn't have the energy to do anything. So I started slacking. Gradually, sleeping in stopped feeling good. I was just too tired. Eventually, I decided to try again. For some reason, I struggled to get back to lights out by 12:35 a.m. I started going to sleep at 1:35 a.m. instead, getting around 5 to 5.5 hours of sleep. And I kid you not, 4 days in, my nasal drip got worse. My left nostril was so clogged, it felt like I could reach in and dig out what was obstructing it. I couldn't help but question how this happened a second time. But I ignored it and kept going. Sorry. Gradually, I was back on track. An hour later, but still on track. But then, 2 weeks ago, I started using my Palma 2 again. It just happened. My sleep became inconsistent, and it took me over a week to even question what was going on. This is ridiculous. But around that time, I began reading Suzumi by Makoto Shinkai. I read his other book, Your Name, years ago, and remember liking it, so I ended up pre-ordering all his books. I finally decided to read one, Suzume, and it's fine. I'm just not really invested in the characters or story. And I want to stress, it took me over a week to realize, oh, I'm just avoiding having to read Suzumi. Subconsciously, I would rather mess up my sleep than read this book. Once I had this realization, I knew I had to either push through and finish Suzumi quickly, or I had to drop it. I decided to spend Saturday morning finishing it, and now I know that when I choose a book to read before going to sleep, it needs to be one I'm interested in. Otherwise, my Palma 2 will just come out and throw off my whole schedule. Seriously, my constant defaulting to not thinking and dragging things out is so frustrating. It's just waste my time, and now I have to get back on track again. It feels like I'm constantly proving to myself that I can't do this. Luckily, instead of wallowing in that, I came to a more amusing realization as a result of this. The Mucinex incident happened in February. In March, I got back on track, sleep-wise, though an hour behind. Do you know what also happened in March? Daylight savings time. I cannot help but wonder, am I subconsciously still on pre-daylight savings time? I used to take a shower around 11:30 p.m. Now I find myself instinctively going at 12:30 a.m. And I feel like maybe my sleep habit succeeded after all. Now I just need to fight against my instincts and get on daylight savings time. It's now April. I gave up focusing on atomic habits after like a month. I've just been doing my own thing, and I think it's working. I no longer use my punch cards or to-do cards. Instead, I found this 6-month Wise planner on my bookshelf, and I love it. I started using it January, and I've already bought another one. It's split into sections: goals, habit tracker, routines, month, week, and day plans. It's not for everyone, but I found it extremely helpful so far, especially the day plans. That's really helped me focus on what I want to get done, and the little schedule it includes makes me feel like I'm being productive throughout the day. Meanwhile, the week and month plans have helped me figure out how to schedule my overall goals that I'm working towards. I'm still learning how to figure out the difference between what I expect to do and what I'll realistically do, but so far it's been good, as long as I'm sleeping. Otherwise, it's one of the things I end up slacking on. My only complaints are the lack of built-in tabs, and I wish the quality of the planner was a little better. But overall, recommend. I no longer use the sleep and evening routine sidekick journal. I still love it, but I don't need it anymore. By day 50-ish, I found myself just doing my evening routine, barely opening the book, which sucks considering I bought 2 more copies, but maybe I'll give those away to a friend, or if I need to use it again in the future, I'll have it. I was pleasantly surprised that even when I relapsed back into my old sleep habits, I still consistently did my evening routine. It really stuck. I may not be sleeping, but hey, I'm doing my evening routine. I had such a good time using this journal, I got carried away and bought a bunch of other habit nest journals. I tried the stretching sidekick journal, but realized by day 3 it wasn't for me, which is unfortunate because I'd also bought the dumbbell and bodyweight Phoenix frameworks. I knew as I was buying them I was making a mistake, so this is really on me. Right now I'm using the budgeting sidekick journal, and I like it so far. When I'm more comfortable budgeting, I plan to start using the nutrition sidekick journal. See, I'm trying to pace myself instead of attempting everything at once. Currently, I've found myself writing Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Friday, reading writing books Wednesday, and editing Saturday, Sunday. I'm still figuring out when to work on scripts for this channel, and now I suddenly want to create a Substack, so I need to eventually figure out when to fit writing articles into my schedule. But I'm slowly doing it, trial and erroring it. I'm currently using the Author's Accountability Planner 2025 edition. It has some minor issues, but it's helping me stay consistent writing-wise. I found myself writing some days I don't want to just to update this planner, so far this has been a good purchase. And I really do like updating it every night. It's just so satisfying. I found I quickly gave up on an author identity. I think it's because to me, an author is someone who publishes. It's not enough to just write. It's so ingrained in me to think this way, I just can't identify as an author. I'm a writer. Maybe a hobbyist writer, but a writer. Now to ingrain that writers write. I'm currently reading Writing on Empty by Natalie Goldberg, and my hope is to next read either Writing Fiction by Janet Barroway or Make a Scene by Jordan Rosenfeld. I have a plan. I'm going to try reading one of these books Monday through Friday before I write and see if that helps me improve. I ended up uninstalling Stay Focus. It worked, but I just didn't like using it. I still use my lockbox, but I've noticed just putting my Palma 2 in it is enough. I don't have to actually lock the box. I just have to physically put my Palma 2 inside of it or on top of it. I've come to realize I need to acknowledge the impact my anxiety and depression has on me and my habit-making endeavors. Back in September 2024, my therapist broke up with me, and I haven't seen a new one since. I know I should find one. I just don't want to. I believe this is the first time in over 10 years I haven't seen a therapist consistently. Instead, I'm taking my time to read nonfiction books on mental health and do work on my own. Probably not the best approach, but if I need more help, I can always find another therapist then. In the meanwhile, I finished reading Permission to Feel by Mark Brackett and loved it. I even downloaded his free app and am actually using it. Right now I'm reading the Dialect Behavior Therapy Skills Workbook and I'm dragging it out. The thing is, the DBT Skills Workbook is all application, and I've remembered that I struggle when it comes to applying skills. Workbooks seem great, but I've never actually finished one. Thinking about it, I was having a grand old time reading Feeling Great by David Burns until it came to actually having to do the daily mood journal. Then suddenly I stopped reading it. I see how I haven't picked up mini habits for weight loss ever since I reached the chapter where I'm supposed to create my own mini habits plan. It's not deliberate. I just put these books down and either forget to pick them back up or come up with excuses to justify why I'm taking a small break that isn't really that small. And since I never challenge this behavior, I keep repeating it. It's similar to Suzumi in that way, but where not reading Suzumi noticeably affected my sleep, the consequences of not reading the DBT skills workbook are not as obvious. I need to be more vigilant or figure out some safeguards to catch when this happens. I'm not good at noticing it myself. I love the people in my life, but they are so busy dealing with their own issues, I can't rely on them to hold me accountable consistently. So what can I do instead? I thought about setting up a weekly reminder, but I find that I eventually ignore those. I just kind of stop seeing them after a while. Instead, I found Future Me, a website where you write a letter to your future self, which seems fun. So I tried it. I wrote about my goals and hopes for the month of April, and it should arrive May 5th. Hopefully my impassioned plea helps me stay on track or better helps me catch myself when I veer off course. When I sent my letter, I saw this screen. So maybe next time I'll just email myself using delayed delivery, since that's free. And if anyone has any suggestions, I'm open to hearing them. Like I said, I'm currently trial and erroring this. I started working on the script in December, and it's been months of occasionally rewriting and adding to it. I actually recorded a voiceover for a version of it 3 weeks ago, only to decide, no, I need to rewrite it from scratch. Maybe drop the atomic habits angle entirely. I obviously didn't do that, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm grateful to Atomic Habits, if only for helping me remove my floating bookshelves. But seriously, working on this video has led me to be more introspective and really reflect more deeply on myself and my behaviors. I'm not confident I would have realized what was happening with Suzumi if I wasn't working on this video. It definitely would have taken me longer than a week to even notice. I think falling back into old habits can be demoralizing, but also not. It's just part of a long process to change. I remember watching this YouTube video, Change Your Life One Tiny Step at a Time. He talks about viewing our brain as a jungle, and our habits as pathways in it that we've traveled so consistently they've become like highways, and we just follow these routes on autopilot, while our new habits are still dirt roads full of rocks and twigs. It's no wonder it's so easy to slip right back into old habits. I think it's important to remind yourself that change isn't instantaneous, but that doesn't mean change isn't happening. I thought my sleep habit had failed, only to realize no, I was still following it. It's just the timing was off. And because I couldn't see that, I slowly started slipping back into the mindset that I can't change and maybe I should stop trying. I stopped thinking, and I didn't challenge this thought until I revised this script for this video. Not writing is easy, but not thinking is even easier. So I'm glad I didn't give up on this video, and I hope that if you made it this far, this video has helped you too. That said, I'm not entirely sure you need an identity-based habit to create a habit that lasts. I agree with Clear's logic. Everything he said makes sense. I just don't want to be that deliberate for each habit I plan to make. When I started my nighttime face routine over a year ago, I just did it. No overthinking, no identity work, and so far, it's stuck. Maybe it'll fall apart later because of this, but maybe not. I don't know. I do know that I've taken some things from Atomic Habits and applied them to my behaviors, consciously and subconsciously, and even doing it half-assed. It did help me create writing and sleep habits. My sleep habit feels rock solid, thanks in part to Habit Nest's sleep and evening routine sidekick journal. My writing habit, not so much. It feels super shaky. Definitely a work in progress. Which leads me to consider making a video next year about creating a writing habit using Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. I just so happen to own his book. It's been sitting on my bookshelf, staring at me, judging me. It could be fun to apply what I learn from reading it to build a more solid writing habit, though knowing me, I'll probably end up doing my own thing. But hopefully I'll subconsciously absorb something helpful. Still, I am curious. If I'm more intentional and focused, what kind of results could I get? Subscribe to find out. Next video I go over my messy world building journey. Hope to see you there. Thanks for watching. Man, this video was a beast.